Hello and welcome. So happy to have you accompany us on this weekend's journey through the pages of another enlightening edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. Coming up in this half hour, we'll hear from beneficiaries at schools in the west end of the island who are getting items to better prepare them for learning. Healthwise looks at preventing and treating with cardiovascular complications of diabetes. Sit back and relax for all these and more following this important message.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
The best indicator of Jamaica's capacity in managing the health system would be the number of beds that we have. And we have to be very careful about how we as a country loosen our measures, because very rapidly this virus could spread and the number of beds that we have could easily be used up. That would throw us into a crisis. It was not so long ago, in February, that we approached that crisis level. We do not want to get there again.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
In this leg of our bi-weekly Western Roundup, team member Nikita Sterling is taking us on a visit to schools in the western section of the island. Students there are benefiting from back-to-school donations, while others are learning to shake the salt habit. Hop on for the ride.
Today on Western Roundup, we head to St. James and Hanover, where schools receive the well-needed personal equipment through the Help for Friends Foundation. And then we hop over to St. Ann to the Marcus Garvey Technical High School, where students learn ways to shake the salt habit in commemoration of Salt Awareness Week. Stay with us.
The staff and students of 5 St. James and 1 Hanover-based schools are now better equipped to manage face-to-face classes after receiving a recent donation of personal and protective equipment and school supplies. The donation, made by the US-based Help for Friends Foundation, went to the Bethel Primary and Infant School in Hanover, as well as the Farm, Glendavon and Goodwill Primary and Infant Schools, Paradise Basic School and St. James Preparatory School in St. James. Founder of Help for Friends, Aditya Srinivasan, who also received assistance from the Ayuda and Face Shields Against Corona Foundations, says giving back has become second nature for members of the organization.
The goal with Help for Friends was always to help students and kids that were in need of education for any kind of reasons. I just kind of heard about the situation in Jamaica with the multiple lockdowns. And I was hearing about how schools didn't have supplies and funding to restart. So with my organization, Help for Friends, we decided over the summer, hopefully, that we were going to be able to gather a list of supplies that these schools needed and find a way to get those supplies into Jamaica. So with me, we have Rahil, who helped with the face shields, and Neha, who helped gather the masks. And together, despite some shipping difficulties, we gathered all kinds of school supplies, from academic supplies like notebooks and pencils and whiteboard pens to the health supplies.
Meanwhile, the administrators from the 6 schools are grateful for the donations, noting that the resources will go a far way in assisting teachers and students.
We're really grateful to this organization for providing well-needed supplies to the staff and students of Bethel Primary School. Masks are in demand right now because of the pandemic, and we have been purchasing masks at school, and we know these are very expensive commodities. So getting these from this organization is going to go a far way in providing safety for our students and for our staff also. And then the office supplies, the glues, the pen, the pencils. We are so thankful. Parents today are under a lot of pressure because many have lost their jobs due to the pandemic, and so they are unable to provide many of the things that their children need for school. So we are really thankful for these office and classroom supplies.
We're really very excited to be back face to face. And we have found out that since we have resumed that many of our students, they are attending school without masks. Some of them, they have come for masks after losing the one that they have, or they are in need of a mask for mask break. And so we are really very excited for the donations that have been given to us today by Help for Friends.
This year, Salt Awareness Week is being celebrated from March 14 to 20 under the theme Shake the Salt Habit, and the students pursuing hospitality and villa services at the Marcus Garvey Technical High School in St. Anne received first-hand exposure to preparing meals without salt. The initiative was organized in collaboration with Sandals Ocherius.
The rationale behind the activity today was to, enforce, the light, of the everyday world. We have senior citizens today who are suffering from hypertension, and we want to introduce the use of salt in our diet. And so forth, we try to create, interested way of use our local ingredients to enhance the palates, of everyday society. So what we did was use local ingredients, and try to incorporate potent flavors that would add value and more flavor, so you don't miss out on the salt usage.
We were just promoting the health benefits of not having any sodium in your diet, because hypertension is one of the leading causes of heart disease in today's society. And we want people to know that they can actually have palatable food without have to consume a lot of salt or any salt, any at all. So what we did today, we did a sweet potato confit, and we also did a very rich curry reduction with all Jamaican spices, and we also did a crusted salmon, no salt. And as we could see that they really enjoyed the meal that we provided.
The students are also grateful for the experience and how it will benefit them in their careers.
I benefited from today's activity because I learned a lot of things. I learned how to hold the knife properly to cut what is needed to cut. I learned specific terms in the kitchen. I learned how to do a flambe. I learned at what temperature to cook certain meats and fishes. My takeaway is the ingredients that you can use to substitute salt that actually adds flavors to your dish.
This experience was very amazing. It expands my knowledge towards cooking to a certain level without salt.
That's all for the program today. We encourage you to shake the salt habit as we try to stay safe and healthy during this time. As usual, thanks for joining us for Western Roundup, where we take you from the corners of St. Elizabeth to the hilly terrains of St. Anne. Remember to send your feedback to jismobe@jis.gov.jm. Until next time, take care.
What a way you're full of our roots and culture. That was in Jamaica 60. Jamaica 60? What a piece of news, Miss Matty. I feel like my heart going bust up.
Just in, the island of Jamaica is on the verge of celebrating its 60th year of independence.
A holy way of celebrating it. They say the people them, them come here, But you see, when our people decide, say the other people them free paper, burn up, them say if it's war, start it, whatever. We all collect medal panta for it, medal. Amount of tongue we give them,
The celebrations are slated to begin on January 1st, 2022. Organized by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. We have more in this report.
I am on site and planning activities are ablaze. Persons are advised to download the Reggae Jamaica app to know what it pre.
Why pre?
Activities for the Jamaica 60 celebration.
Yeah. Download the app to get the updates then.
As we look to be more health-wise, this week the focus is on the dangers of cardiovascular complications in persons who are diabetic. We're learning about the causes, signs, and treatment options.
Diabetes is a common illness. Most of us may be aware of its various complications, such as diabetic retinopathy and neuropathy, diabetic kidney disease, and so on. But when it comes to deaths caused from diabetes, cardiovascular complications account for the majority. Diabetes is recognized as one of 4 major factors for developing cardiovascular disease, the others being hypertension, obesity, and cigarette smoking.
About 68% of persons over the age of 65, and this is data now from the American Heart Association, 65% of persons over the age of 65 who have diabetes will die from heart disease, and about another 16% will die of stroke.
Before we take a look at how to manage or even prevent cardiovascular complications of diabetes, let us look at how persons come to develop the disease.
In a nutshell, what generally happens is that diabetic persons have a more rapid rate at which fat and cholesterol is deposited in the arterial system. So we all have that. It's considered part of the process of aging. Fat and cholesterol is being laid down in our arteries. However, diabetic persons tend to have that happen at a more rapid rate. Okay? And as a result of that, what tends to happen is that diabetic persons will progress to a point where they have compromised vessels. So in other words, the lumen, the diameter of the vessel, is narrowed, the flow of blood is limited.
And as the heart muscles become starved of blood, various acids accumulate and persons will tend to experience what is called angina, or a type of chest pain.
You may get complete blockage of the vessel, which may now result in what is called a heart attack.
Heart tissues are not meant to function in an environment where the blood sugar level is elevated. And so, another incidence of diabetic cardiovascular complication results where high blood sugar levels in persons who are diabetic becomes directly toxic to heart cells. This impairs the ability of blood vessels to open normally under conditions of stress, such as exercise, and also causes inflammation and impaired clotting of the blood.
So if they're chronically exposed to those levels of elevated blood sugars, then there are biochemical consequences. There's weakness of the heart muscle, and patients, many of them, go on to developing heart failure and so on.
The diagnosis of cardiovascular complications is more difficult in diabetics, where the symptoms appear unclear or may be different from the non-diabetic patient. Take, for example, a non-diabetic person with, say, coronary heart disease.
Generally, they will say, well, look, doc, I felt pressing pain to the center of my chest. It's moving down my left arm. It comes on with activity. It stops when I stop engaging in whatever activity. It feels like a weight or like a pressure, like a squeezing sensation, and it's associated with other things like shortness of breath and so on. Diabetics, however, have a particular problem because they have damage to the nerves, and therefore they may not actually experience chest pain at all. If they do, it may not be the typical angina which we would normally expect a patient to describe. Okay? So oftentimes diabetic patients who are having cardiovascular disease will say that, doc, I just feel a little funny sensation in my chest, a little discomfort. I just feel short of breath, or, I'm walking up the stairs, or I'm running after my grandkids and I find that I'm just out of breath.
The rest of the diagnostic process, however, is similar and may include an echocardiogram (ECG), blood works, or various stress tests accessible at public health facilities and at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. Generally, diabetic patients will have elevated blood sugars in their urine, which, if identified, serves as a red flag and need for more specific testing. A urinalysis or urine dipstick test is generally done as part of school medicals, oftentimes as a screening test for diabetes. As with every illness, early detection and prevention is key to having good health.
It would be good every year for every person to be checked. If you're diabetic, you would have been told how often you need to check your blood sugar by your health professional. But if you're just doing checks and you're healthy otherwise, then at least once a year to check your cholesterol, your sugar, your blood pressure, do your ECG to see if there is any abnormality in the heart.
The treatment of cardiovascular disease in diabetic patients is more holistic, involving lifestyle changes to include diet, exercise, and maintaining a healthy weight.
In a nutshell, we advocate for, eating primarily fruits and vegetables, things like whole grains and nuts, limiting one's intake of fast foods, foods with high fat content, high cholesterol, salt, and so on, and portion size management as well.
More unprocessed foods, less of the very refined high sugar foods. So there are those foods that are obviously very high in sugar. So the typical recommendation, if you look at a plate, half of the plate should be more plant-based foods, leafy vegetables, and some fruit.
In general, 150 minutes minimum per week of moderate exercise such as swimming, brisk walking, jogging or cycling is recommended. Besides the lifestyle changes, clinical treatment through prescription drugs and surgical procedures is an important element in caring for persons with cardiovascular complications of diabetes.
We have medications to address symptoms, we have medications to prolong life. And that forms an important part of the approach. There are a variety of procedures which diabetic patients and other non-diabetic patients may qualify for, or it may be necessary to pursue. So we speak of things like stenting, for example, coronary artery bypass grafting, which is of course open heart surgery, major surgery. Diabetic patients we have a lower threshold for referring diabetics for that kind of procedure just because of the severity of their disease.
Medications developed primarily for use by diabetic patients have been shown to have significant cardiovascular benefits as they reduce the risk of death and complications related to cardiovascular disease in diabetic patients. But with most of them still under patent, access is quite costly. Your best treatment option is to adopt healthy lifestyle practices that make you less prone to developing diabetes or cardiovascular disease.
Mosquitoes can spread diseases such as dengue fever. Protect yourself from mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent that contains DEET. Sleep under a mosquito net, close windows before dark, open windows and doors during fogging, cover your body as much as possible, and wear light-colored clothing. Protect yourself from dengue and other mosquito-borne diseases. Do your part to prevent mosquito breeding in your surroundings.
Another important health topic is the prevention of cervical cancer. To help protect our women and girls, government has been offering the human papillomavirus HPV vaccine. We learn more in this next feature.
Globally, cervical cancer is the second most common type of cancer in women, with over 85% occurring in developing countries. Every year, 528,000 new cases are diagnosed, and there are approximately 270,000 deaths. By 2050, without any intervention, the number of diagnosed cases of cervical cancer is expected to increase to 1 million per year, with approximately 90% of the deaths occurring in developing countries like ours. A major factor is the human papillomavirus, HPV, of which there are approximately 200 types that infect epithelia, or skin tissue. At least 14 types of the human papillomavirus have been found to cause cancer of the cervix. Types 16 and 18 are responsible for 70% of cancers of the cervix, which is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in Jamaica. The virus can be transmitted through skin-to-skin contact, from mother to child at birth.
Current estimates indicate that every year, just under 400 women are diagnosed with this disease, with approximately 185 dying from the disease, with the majority of deaths occurring in women between the ages of 40 and 64 years of age.
A prevalence study conducted in Jamaica in 2010 revealed that the overall prevalence of any type of HPV infection was 54%. Cancer-causing HPV types were detected in 34.9% of the women, and HPV types 16 and 18 were found in 10.5% of the general population and in 71% of women with abnormal pap smears. This reality has prompted the Jamaican government to take the initiative to prevent cervical cancer through the introduction of the bivalent human papillomavirus HPV vaccine.
The World Health Organization, WHO, recommends that HPV vaccines be included in national immunization programs as a core strategy for primary prevention against cervical cancer. WHO states, Mr. Speaker, that HPV vaccination for girls ages 9 to 14 years is the most cost-effective public health measure against this disease.
More than 70 countries around the world, including more than 20 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, have already introduced the vaccine. Several studies and monitoring by the World Health Organization, WHO Global Advisory Committee on Vaccine Safety, proved that HPV vaccination is safe and works extremely well, decreasing the number of HPV infections and related precancers. The bivalent HPV vaccine, introduced by the Ministry of Health in schools at grade 7 to girls ages 9 to 14, provides for 90 to 100% protection against HPV types 16 and 18. The vaccine is offered free of cost.
Bear in mind too, by the way, the cost to administer one of these vaccines, for us, the cost is somewhere in the region of $7-8 US. If you go into the private sector, you're looking at anywhere from $11,000 to $15,000. So it's not inexpensive.
This vaccine is not mandatory, and beneficiaries received opt-out forms for parents and guardians to give or refuse permission for their girl child to receive the vaccine.
We can take it that the indication, if anything, is that they want this. They identify with this. I remember one girl indicated that her mother actually called her aunt, who is a nurse, for advice. So that spells good. It says that persons are prepared to consult, get information, and then make informed decisions. And so that is going well.
Approximately 22,500 girls were targeted for the vaccine's introduction in 2017, with each girl needing 2 doses given 6 months apart for full protection.
Generally speaking, the process has gone smoothly.
The school-based strategy for implementation seeks to facilitate greater access to the targeted population. This covers the cost for social mobilization and communication, cold chain equipment, training and sensitization, and procurement of vaccine and vaccination supplies. And this disease prevention strategy will save the government millions. The Ministry of Health estimated that annual cost for the program after introduction will be 73.3 million Jamaican dollars.
In Jamaica, the estimated cost is of the just under 400 cases annually, Mr. Speaker, is some $274 million. I should point out that this figure is only for radiotherapy and does not include diagnosis and chemotherapy.
And for the individual, not just the emotional and physical trauma caused by this cancer is removed, but the financial burden.
In the United States, cost on diagnosis is approximately some 15,000, just under 16,000 US dollars. If the patient survives for a year, this rate goes up to approximately 30,000 US dollars.
Despite vaccination, persons will still need to do their routine pap smear to check for any threat or signs of the cancer, as the key to effective treatment, if it should occur, is early detection. For more information or to have your concerns answered, you can call the Ministry of Health's toll-free line 1-888-1-LOVE or 1-888-663-5683. Also email hpvinfo@moh.gov.jm. You can also visit the website moh.gov.jm as well as social media channels.
I want to encourage the membership of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but more so the citizens of Jamaica to respond to the opportunity to be vaccinated. The evidence around suggests that most persons who are being hospitalized are those persons who have not taken any form of vaccine.
Getting the first dose is not an excuse not to wear the mask, not to social distance or physical distance, not to sanitize. Getting the first dose is not justification for deciding that you're going to resume the parties, the gatherings beyond the limits that have been established. The journey is to observe the protocols, take the second dose when it is time, and then we will resume some semblance of normalcy once we achieve herd immunity.
We've come to our final stop on today's journey through the pages of Jamaica Magazine. Thank you for your company. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more information you can use. Until then, keep watching this and other programs on the JIS's YouTube channel. Visit our website, jis.gov.jm, and find us on all the major social media platforms and through our mobile app that's Android and iOS compatible. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson, reminding you that while COVID-19 restrictions are being relaxed, you are to continue to protect yourself and others. Get vaccinated and maintain good hygiene practices. And stay safe.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.